Hello, welcome everybody. I'm so pleased to have you all back here. I've been really looking forward to this one coming up. I hope that you've got some nice weather where you are. In Devon, spring has definitely sprung. That's fantastic. Always makes me feel a lot better when I'm making my way home in the sunshine. I'm looking off to our window there if you're wondering where I was looking. We've got two fabulous whiskies this evening. As always, I'll do a coin flip to see who goes first. But I must remember to let you know that if you love either one of these bottles, tomorrow morning we're going to send you an email and it will be letting you know that we're going to have some of these bottles at a very special price for you guys. Okay, so I'll do the coin flip and see who goes first. It's our world whiskey. So let's invite in our first guest. Hello. There's two of you.
Yes, there is. Hello, hello.
Hello. So could you introduce yourself and please tell us where you come from in the world?
Well,
Well, I am.
I should have let you go first. Sorry, Barb.
No, you start it.
Okay, I'm John Cote, and my wife and I, Barbara, are the co-founders of Black Fox Farm and Distillery. So we are in if you look at a map of Canada, we're kind of on the left-hand side a little bit, kind of right in the middle of the country.
Fantastic, fantastic. So we do have two of you currently here. Barb, it looks like you're in an interesting place.
I am. So I wanted to say hello from the springtime in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, as John said, in the middle of the country. But one of the interesting things about our whiskey is that we have weather as an ingredient because I wanted to start off by showing you where we store our whiskey, which is outdoors 365 days a year. And the interesting thing is today it is a balmy minus 21 degrees Celsius. And all I can say is it just makes for really good whiskey.
Okay, well, that's fabulous. I mean, I've got so many questions, but I think we've got lots of people here who are very thirsty. So I'm going to encourage us to start sipping our whiskey. Could you tell us a little bit more about the whiskey we're trying, and then we'll go into the processes that you do at the distillery?
Yes, so the whiskey that we're going to be trying tonight is made from a grain, quite a unique grain here in Canada. It's called triticale, which is a wheat and a rye hybrid. And so the grains are grown right here at the farm. And so our background is farming, not distilling. And we figured the thought process was if I could grow a better grain than anybody else in the world, what would that grain be? And what would be the perfect product that we could make? And we said, here, we could actually make really interesting ingredients to make whiskey out of. And that's did a whole bunch of research on which types of grain found triticale and then did that further research and saying here which strains would be absolutely unique. So that's the bottle that it looks like. And so if everybody wants to, James, I'm going to count on your nose. Tell me what you think.
Oh, I'm getting a nice sweetness from this personally. Oh, and I'm getting a dessert from childhood, but that's going to annoy me now which one it is. Tell us a little bit of what we should be smelling there.
So I pick up everything from cherry to a little bit of lemon sherbet,
Mm-hmm.
like on the nose, and it's quite interesting. So the barrels are very. Being outside, what happens is that the weather here is so severe when they heat up during the day. So even if we had like a sunny day today, those barrels would create quite a bit of pressure. And then tonight, when it cools down, they'll create a vacuum. So it's really reactive with the wood. But the grain itself, being a hybrid like it is, you're picking up some of the flavors that come from rye and some from the wheat. So that's the grain going in. And then we use a whole bunch of different kinds of yeast. So we're throwing off quite nice fruity flavors. And then you have the baking spices. So it's almost like having, you were saying it's like a dessert from your childhood. So it's that confection kind of a palate that you end up with it. And so again, cherry, lemon, lots of creme brulee, those kind of things. But then you get a hint of clove and pepper and all that kind of stuff coming in on the back end.
And we don't really ever come across hybrids. So I wonder if you could go just screw down a little bit more onto that, because it's such an interesting idea.
So yeah, so hybridization in farming is commonplace. So in the theory is that if you have parents that are very distantly related, when you cross them, the offspring is much stronger than the parent. And so most of us are familiar with that with our children. So we, you get married and you have kids, and your kids are all 6 inches taller than you are. Part of that's we have better nutrition now, but part of that is a hybridization. So every generation you have a stronger offspring. So that was the theory with triticale. So you take those two, they're very, very different grains, and you try and get the best of both worlds. So rye in this part of the world is known for being very disease resistant, extremely hardy, where wheat has better bread making qualities and is, yields better and all those things. So then the people that are trying to here, they want more flour for making bread. You try and put the two together and you end up with kind of a super plant. The interesting thing with triticale is they were looking at the bread market originally and they couldn't get the rye flavor out of it. So it's one of the only grains that was ever selected just based on flavor. So they were always trying to get those flavors to be perfect for what they wanted. And then they realized, well, they probably could never make bread out of it, but they could make whiskey out of it. So a lot of research was actually done around how it fermented, how it tasted as a whiskey, and driving those flavors out of it. So some of the strains are very, very interesting for whiskey production.
Will Barb be joining us again?
She is.
Yeah, there we go.
I made it back.
Just in time. So thank you so much for showing your all the barrels and casks outside. So my question is, why?
We we ran out of money. That is why.
Now, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah. So it was an interesting thing that happened is we had built the distillery, we had done a whole bunch of other expansions and stuff, and when it came time that our whiskey was ready, we didn't have the money to build a rick house or a warehouse. So we have lots of space, and we decided to place the whiskeys outdoors. But then what ended up happening was that Canadian whiskey is similar to Scottish whiskeys, that you cannot call them whiskey legally until they've been aged in the barrel for 3 years. And so at 2 years of age, we sent our whiskey away for adjudication because we are new to the business. We didn't know exactly what we were doing. And the gentleman got back to us and said, "Do not ever contact me again. You are liars and charlatans. This is not 2-year-old whiskey, and I will not work with you." So we contacted the gentleman, and well, first we looked up what a charlatan meant, because we didn't know that. And then we found out it's a liar and a cheat, and we asked him, we contacted him and said, "Why do you claim this?" And he said, "This whiskey is way darker in color, and it has way more flavor than a typical 2-year-old whiskey. So therefore, you are buying someone else's whiskey, placing it in your barrels, and I won't work with you." And so we contacted him and said, no, this is our whiskey. Maybe it's the grain because it's triticale and it's different. And he said that could be some of the reason. We said maybe it's the barrel that we use, the cask, because we use brand new American white oak barrels. And he said, well, that could be some of it too. So my dear husband puffed up his chest and said, "Maybe I am just a good distiller." And the gentleman said, "No." And so then the gentleman asked, he said, "Where do you store your whiskey?" And we said, "Outdoors." And he said, "Well, outdoors in a warehouse." And we said, "No warehouse." He said, "Under a roof." We said, "No roof." And he said, "Nobody does that." And we said, "We know, but we didn't have money. So we have since found out that whiskey gets flavor from interaction of the liquid and the wood. And by storing it outdoors in our temperature fluctuations, we get this massive in and out of the barrel that really creates some incredible flavors. And so now we will never store our whiskeys in a rick house because this is working quite well for us.
Fantastic. I mean, why would I? But I've never come across that before. What a fascinating story. Does that ever have any drawbacks? Because obviously, you know, it's nice having your casks in a nice protected rick house.
Well, that is so. The reason people put them inside is because they're not built to be outdoors. So they don't. Some of them will physically blow up. It'll blow them. They'll create so much pressure. It'll blow the metal bands right off of them. So we end up with higher losses to the point where, you know, anybody in Scotland thinks we're a little daft that we would ever accept that. But we average about 8% a year.
Angel share.
Angel share.
So we just have happier angels. That's
Of course.
Yeah.
yeah. So one of the things, James, that we would love to share with your guests is that on top of every bottle of ours is a coin. The coin carries a serial number, and when they place the serial number on our website, it will generate a certificate of provenance to tell them everything they want to know about their bottle of whiskey. So it will tell how cold the whiskey got, or how cold the cask got, how warm the cask got. It'll tell how many hours of bright sunshine. We have probes into our barrels to monitor this that's hooked up to our weather station. And it'll talk about the cask and the finish and everything, and the crop. So the whiskey that you're tasting tonight was actually, the minimum storage temperature was minus 42.5, and the maximum was plus 40.1.
Wow, that's so cool.
Cool is right, yes.
Okay, so my next question is, why did you guys start a distillery?
Oh, that's a long. There could be.
Big
That
question,
could
big
take
question.
2 hours, but
We'll make it short.
we'll make it short. Anyway, so our background is farming. So Barb and I, by the time we started this project, had worked in agriculture, basically on every continent except for Africa and the Antarctic. Come back to Saskatchewan and realize, oh, our business model might not be great for the next 100 years. It'd be fine for us, but we wanted to build something that in generations to come that would still be here. And with our knowledge of farming, we felt we had a big advantage over basically everyone else in the world, that we could grow specific grains to distill that nobody else would be able to grow. And that's how it started.
I love it. Fantastic. Fantastic. And we can see your lovely stills behind you there. We often do talk about the stills that distilleries use. I wonder if you could take us through the specifics of yours.
So we're very small. We make like 200 barrels a year of whiskey. So we're running, it's a hybrid pot still that was built in Germany for us. We had to get it custom built for us because, not being a super great planner sometimes, is that I built the building first and we had to squish the still down a little bit to make it fit inside the building. So it led to a little bit of customization, and we wanted to be able to make absolutely everything. So we off our farm, we also make gin and we make some other things. We grow 95% of our ingredients. So we needed something that was really adaptable. So that's where the hybrid pot still works really good for us, because we can make whiskey one day. Well, actually, so typically we'll make whiskey for about 2 months, and then we'll clean everything out, and then we'll make gin and a whole bunch of different products, and then rip everything apart, clean it out really well, and then go back to making whiskey again. And it's, for us, it's all about the farm and the ingredients that we can grow, and taking that beauty and being able to turn it into something. And whiskey happens to be kind of, it's a pile of fun to make, and it leads to, though, we don't use, so if you're running a batch system like this, you have your heads and your hearts and your tails, what we call them in Canada, so our different cuts. We don't use any of the tails fraction at all in our whiskey. So it never gets recycled into the next distillation. That's what we use for making gin, actually. So we'll run that back through the still, clean it all up, and then take all these ingredients that we grow here on the farm and make a gin as kind of to follow up on it. So that's basically how we're running the still.
Nice. And I know what will be happening. There'll be some people saying, what's a hybrid pot still? So if we know that a pot still is effectively a large bowl or a pot, and then the alcohol boils up and makes its way up and then hits the top and goes down the condenser and out, that's our pot still. So I wonder if you could let us know what a hybrid pot still would be.
So a hybrid pot still, so you still have that pot still, but now you hook it into two different columns. And you could have one column or two columns, but the idea, you have the option of using rectifying plates. And the beauty of that is, so if I'm distilling once today, you can actually distill it another 2 or 3 times in order to actually come out with a whiskey in one run. And from the sciencey part of it, or what I really like about it is, so whiskey is just like you cook the best meal ever, and you enjoy it. And the next day you have leftovers and you put it in the microwave and you heat it up again. It never tastes quite as good because you're destroying all those organic compounds where all the flavor's from. When you use a hybrid system, you have a unique opportunity that you can distill it completely 2 or 3 or 4 times and only have to heat it once. So you never destroy those organic compounds. And that's just part of keeping all that flavor in. The other part that we do that's kind of special to keep all those flavors intact, each barrel is kind of treated separately, and it's never chill filtered. So we always bottle above 46%. And I was noticing one of the questions was, how tall is the still? So the still's 20 feet high, and but running 2 columns with 10 plates in each column. But those plates we can use or not use. Rarely do we ever use all 20.
Okay, interesting.
It is a small still, and I'm sorry, I was busy calculating. My understanding is that Macallan's and Glenfiddich make about 160 million liters a year. What they could make in a day would take us 6 years.
Okay. So you're working on it. You're working on it.
We're working on it.
But that's the fun of it, is that this is not whiskey. Not everybody can have this whiskey. There's only 200 barrels a year, and those that get it, they're.
Oh, I wonder if we've lost you there. Oh no, we've got you.
I think you're back now.
Ah, whew. So, what I'd be annoyed with myself if I didn't ask this. The casks and storing them outside is such an unusual feature. I wonder if you could take us from the new make style and what that tastes like, and then what you're noticing throughout the years, and then also how far can you store it outside? Have you done those kind of tests? Take us through that kind of story of, as soon as the new make's in that cask, what's happening?
So the new make that we're making is quite light and fruity. So Canadian whiskey is quite a bit different than anything that you would find being made in the UK. So we're really looking for those fruit flavors on the new make. As soon as we put it into the casks are very reactive, especially in the summertime. So you get a lot of color development initially, and in about 2 years you start getting the character of the whiskey coming through. And then the really interesting thing, and this is not coming from a distilling or maturation background, is then we find it cycles, and all of a sudden you'll find a cask that may be as young as 4 years, and it'll taste absolutely lovely. And if you leave it for another 6 months, it's not the same. It's changed so much that you would never bottle it. So we keep really good tabs on what the flavors are like, how they're cycling. And so I've always we'll have customers, we sell mostly by the cask. So we have customers come in, they want to select the cask. I always have to have in the back of my mind which ones are probably going to be the best to be sampling out of. And we are finding that for us, the prime time to be harvesting is between 5 and 7 years. If we leave it much more than that, we're getting a little bit too much tannin, I think. And so which is fine in the rye whiskey, but you don't really want it so much in our triticale. And so we do think that there's an upper limit on older is not better. And I think that's true in a lot of whiskeys, that just because it has a really old age statement, sometimes it's not, that isn't really an indicator of really good quality. It's just a matter that here, no, it is really old.
Very, very interesting. I've loved this whiskey. I mean, as I found it very hard to put my finger on some of the flavors there. I don't think I've really been exposed to a whiskey like this before. So thank you so much. So interesting. What are you guys planning for the future?
Me.
Well, that's got to be your turn now.
Oh, it's got to be my turn. I think what we're doing is I married a man with a good palate, so I'm going to let him keep doing that. And what I'd like to do, or what I think we'd like to do, is we'd like to see this whiskey get around the world and get exposed to different markets and everywhere in places that they're not used to seeing this. And the interesting thing is that we're finding that it's quite an approachable whiskey, that first time people that try whiskey say, I don't really like whiskey, but I like this. So that's what's going. And yes, we are looking to really get this whiskey known by a lot of people around the globe.
What a fantastic answer.
Well, it's our way, in all honesty, it's our way of sharing what we do in agriculture.
Yeah.
So it is part of the story is here, these are the grains that we grow in our farms. They're sustainably produced. Like we have the size of our distillery is actually just perfect for the piece of land that we farm because there is zero waste stream. Everything gets back used as fertilizer, is found a home on the farm somewhere. So there's basically, you have a garbage bin that sits outside your distillery door. It doesn't get used very often because there's just nothing to throw out when we're done.
Oh, it's been fascinating. I've got family in Vancouver, so I'll say hello to Colin, and I wonder if maybe I should pop over and I can visit you on the way. That sounds quite good, doesn't it?
That sounds fabulous. Yeah, we really like that idea. The first time you come, we'll treat you as a guest. The second time, we'll put you to work.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I don't mind working. Thank you so much. And I'm hoping that you're going to join us again later on this evening. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll see you in a minute.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Gosh, well, I have to admit that has taken me by surprise to see all those casks outside, and I just think what a fantastic whiskey. I don't have a water jug with me at the moment, so I imagine with a couple of drops of water that would open up even more. But gosh, what a real treat. Okay, I think we're ready for our next guest. So hopefully they'll be joining us now. Look at that.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm hoping you could introduce yourself and tell us where you're calling in from.
Yes, hi, I'm Ashley Smith and I'm the master blender for Glen Scotia Distillery in Campbelltown. I'm currently reaching out to you from Glasgow. Flew in from Campbelltown just yesterday, so was up there on Tuesday, Wednesday, spending some time with the team. And yeah, it feels like spring has finally sprung up there, which is great. And there's a lot of positivity because we are well on our way to getting organised for our Malts Festival, which is in May. So there's a real buzz about Campbelltown when that's on. So lots of organising to be done.
Oh, nice. Well, we must touch upon the region of Campbelltown, but I think there's a lot of people that have been very patiently waiting to to try their whiskey. So could you introduce the whiskey we're trying this evening, please?
Yeah, of course. This is our latest addition to our core range, which is the Glen Scotia 12-year-old. It's really a perfect representation of our distillery character. We want to really amplify that coastal style that is synonymous with Campbelltown and Glen Scotia, and that underlying kind of tropical fruit flavour that we're known for at Glen Scotia. And it's really about paying homage and highlighting those traditional techniques that have prevailed in Campbelltown since it was known as the whisky capital of the world. So yeah, let's get our nose in it, yeah. Immediately for me, there's that sort of melty brown sugar, there's lots of tropical fruit flavour on the nose. With a little bit of water, I always find that tropical fruit is really elevated. For me in older Campbelltown, you tend to get that sort of grilled pineapple note. Younger whiskies, again, we're very fruit forward with that sort of toffee apple, but especially with our 12-year-old here, for me it's just pineapple cubes, grilled pineapple.
I must confess, I've had this one before. This is a relatively new release for you guys.
Yeah, September last year is when we really rolled it out.
And I actually keep a top 5 for each year. And this, as soon as this released, it just smashed its way into my top 5 and stayed there. I just think this is a fabulous whiskey, and yeah, really shows off that Campbelltown character. You kind of touched on it there. Campbelltown at one point was Whiskyopolis. But yeah, what would we expect from, if we're thinking with Islay, that's peated and iodine, and maybe Speyside is the sherry notes, the oranges and Christmas spices. What would we be wanting to find in a Campbelltown whiskey?
Yeah, regionality in Campbelltown is just, we're synonymous with that oily, robust spirit. We're a coastal region, so there's a lot of maritime character, there's salinity, especially with Glen Scotia, there's that mineralic quality in the background. You'll even see, if you've got it in your glass and give it a little swirl, those legs really cling to the glass, and that's that oily spirit really showcased. And a lot of that is down to the traditional techniques that are still retained in the region. There are only 3 distilleries in Campbelltown. It's the smallest whisky region, but ultimately it has a huge impact. There's real big flavours coming out of Campbelltown, and it comes from those shared practices, whether that's the short squat stills, giving us really oily, robust spirit, the use of rack and pinion mash tun, which has given us a wash that has got lots of esters, and those long fermentation times, again, which are common practice across those 3 distilleries, which give a real fruit forward character. So there's that lovely balance between that oily robustness and that underlying fruitiness.
Well, that's quite interesting, because in the past we have touched on fermentation times, and we've also talked about the designs of the stills, but the mashing hasn't really come up before. So I wondered if you could maybe tell us a little bit more about that process and what you do and what that practice brings to the whiskey.
Yeah, so we've always had a rack and pinion mash tun at Glen Scotia. The previous mash tun was cast iron and was a piece of kit that was 120 years old. We recently kind of refurbed it in 2024, still retaining the same footfall, but essentially a rack and pinion mash tun it's open topped, it has rakes that circulate the bed of the mash and churn up that lovely wort that we create. It generally kind of, it's probably a lot less efficient than some modern distilleries, which tend to use a lauter or a semi-lauter mash tun. Essentially what the rakes do is they turn the bed of the mash and allow us to extract as much sugar and activate the enzymes as possible to give us lots of flavour. It probably doesn't give us as good of a yield as many modern distilleries, but what we're focused on really is that flavour, getting as much activation from the enzymes and conversion of the sugars later on in the process to create that lovely fruity wash that gives us a beautiful new make spirit that again is rich in fruit flavours but also very robust and oily.
And I've seen some comments about those flavours. Those kind of tropical fruit notes come right at you with this one, don't they?
They really do. It's, as I say, the latest addition to our core range, but we wanted to really emphasise the flavours that are coming out of Glen Scotia without the use of cast finishes. This is 100% first fill bourbon matured. So again, you're going to get a lot of tropical fruit flavour from that first fill bourbon barrel. There's going to be some underlying coconut notes, lots of vanillin, which really complements the Glen Scotia character. The majority of our new make is filled into first fill bourbon, so again really representative of what we're producing at the distillery. And with other aspects in our core range, we'll start to introduce sherry, but here the first fill bourbon really allows that distillery character to shine.
And I guess with say we were looking at Black Fox, and they're very much cask to cask. You've mentioned here that new make tends to go into the first fill bourbon casks. This is a fantastic fantastic 12-year-old. I'm sure people will be buying this bottle, but what would people come to expect from sort of maybe the higher ages, or the other? You also do one called Victoriana, which I think is fabulous
That's
as well.
true. It's quite an iconic one.
What would people, if we're starting with this flavour profile, what can be added?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. So our Glen Scotia double cast, which I think someone has just mentioned, is our PX finish, and that gives a really nice balance. It starts off the whiskey and first fill bourbon, giving us lots of underlying sugar notes, vanilla, caramel. With the PX, it's just adding a little bit of a different dimension. So maybe some more kind of rich molasses, sticky dates, and it's that really nice balance between the robust oily spirit and then the sweetness that you're getting from the casks. When we look at our 15-year-old, for example, it starts life again very similarly to our 12-year-old, in that it's a combination of first fill and refill American oak, so really allowing that distillery character to shine through. And what we don't kind of advertise on the pack, but what we how we treat the whiskey is it has a very short finish in Oloroso casks, and that adds just an element of dried fruit, which again will give you a little bit of longevity on the mouthfeel, a little bit more baking spices. So as my job, it's great fun to kind of experiment with taking that core spirit, our core DNA, and then just giving our customers something a little bit different and experimenting and pushing the boundaries of what Glen Scotia has to offer. But ultimately all of our spirit starts off in that first fill bourbon, because it really complements. For me, it's almost like a balance between the sweet and the savoury. With our kind of robust, oily spirit, then you're getting an injection of sweetness from that first fill bourbon. It's a really nice combination.
My eye keeps darting off to this side because I actually do have a bottle of Glen Scotia 15 that I was trying, but it's too far away. But yeah,
well, if you enjoy the 12-year-olds tonight, it's just giving you a little bit of a different dimension with, as I say, that little bit of seasoning with Oloroso to add a little bit of dried spice and fruits to the background of the dram.
And yeah, like I said, I just think this 12-year-old is absolutely fabulous and shows off everything that's wonderful about Campbelltown. Campbelltown, I have been there, and I have been to Glen Scotia, but on the map it looks like you could get there rather easily, but that's not the case, is it?
That's very deceptive. Yeah, for me, if I'm based in Glasgow, you have to drive north to come back right down on the Kintyre Peninsula. So what is probably, I'm terrible with distances, but as the crow flies, maybe 25 miles, don't quote me on that, but it's a good sort of 4-hour drive from Glasgow. When I was up on Tuesday, I got the flight, which was a beautiful experience. You're up in the air for about 30 minutes and there was hardly a cloud in the sky, the sun was shining, you could see right over Arran, over to Ailsa Craig, and The journey back was not quite as enjoyable because it was a bit foggy and a bit bumpy, and it took me a little bit of time to recover. It's like a 20-seater plane, twin
Yeah.
engine. You feel every jolt. So I much prefer to drive. But one of the most scenic drives, and it's well worth the journey when you get to Campbelltown, and you're you're in just a perfect setting. There's obviously whiskey waiting for you at the end of the day, so that can never be a bad thing.
Yeah, it's no bad thing, is it, after you've taken a lovely scenic drive. Whether although it's long, it is a
It's
beautiful
worth
drive, and then you are
it.
well rewarded when you get there. I wondered if you could take us through like your the typical day that you have when you're visiting Campbelltown. What do you need to get done? What are you looking for? That kind of thing.
I think there is no typical day really. The main thing is obviously just catching up with the team, seeing how the distillery's running, if there's any deviances from what our normal production process is, whether there's work going on in the plant, because anything that kind of changes the flow of production could potentially impact on the spirit. So it's always great to be in touch with the distillery manager and the team there to understand how the spirit is developing up to the point of new make. We'll assess the new make with the team, so that would be nosing rather than tasting. So everything we do is by nose, but we always work from a sensory standards. So that's distillate that we've produced before. We compare with the distillate that we're producing during that week to make sure that the flavour profile is consistent, because that's a really important part of me, for my job, is creating a product that is the same quality that people know and love from Glen Scotia, and we produce that consistently, and we treat it with respect and care, so that when it comes to the 12-year-old or the 15-year-old, if you've tried the 12-year-old in April 2026, you've had the bottle, you've enjoyed it, and then you purchase another bottle in October 2027, it's still that same flavour profile that you know and love, whether you've purchased it in the UK or whether you've tried it on your holiday or wherever. It has to be consistent, and the quality has to be very much what people recognise as Glen Scotia.
It's very interesting because not many people might know, but actually your smell brings a lot when it comes to taste. And some people might be surprised that you're not tasting and you're actually, just doing it by smell. I wondered if there's anything that you could tell me and our guests about, how they should approach whiskey and using smell to help them understand what they're trying.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Our sense of smell is inextricably linked with taste. I mean, just if you cast your mind back to recent times in COVID, when you lost your sense of smell, people just could not taste their food. So, I don't know exact percentage. Everyone's palate's slightly different, but we say, 90% of what you're getting on the nose is going to give you an indication of what you're going to taste. When we're in a lab situation or a sensory situation at work, we always add water to the whiskey, and what that does is release some of the esters and the aromas that are trapped in that alcohol solution, brings those flavours into the headspace of the glass, and just gives you a much more kind of rounder experience. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, watering it down to 20% ABV when you're in the pub, but I would always recommend adding a touch of water. As I say, everyone's palate's different. So for someone it might be, as Teresa says, it could be 2 drops of water, give it another taste. If it's still, you're getting that alcohol burn or you want to experience a little bit more flavour, maybe try another few drops and see what works for you. Sometimes I'll be sitting with a dram and I don't add water, and I'm perfectly happy with it. But your palate will change really depending on the time of day, what whiskey you've had before, your mood, who you're with. So don't be afraid to experiment with water at all. And as I say, for me, with the Glen Scotia 12-year-old, a couple of drops of water really just releases a little bit more of that fruit character, and opens up the dram a little bit more.
I really agree with that, and I imagine quite a few of our viewers are going to snap up a full-size bottle of this tomorrow, and when you get it and you try it, one day you might have a couple of drops and it'll be okay, and another day you actually might need a dash of water. But I always encourage people to actually engage with, what are you thinking, what are you tasting. It's okay that yesterday it was 2 drops, but today I need to dial it in differently, because
Yeah.
your day is different, everything kind of changes all the time, and it's kind of just engaging with that, really.
And who you're with as well. I think when, like, there's nothing better like than this, where you're sitting sharing a dram with someone, you're kind of describing what your experience is, and sometimes the power of suggestion as well. You know, if
Hmm.
someone says, "Oh, I'm really getting that strong toffee note off this," then you like your brain almost tunes into that as well, and you're kind of creating a little sensory bubble between the two or three of you, and there's nothing better than kind of dialing into a dram like that.
So, as you can probably tell, I'm a big fan of Glen Scotia. You guys have got something exciting coming up. You've got a festival coming up.
We do,
Um,
yeah.
some people, are gonna they might not get to the festival this year, but it's a dream of people to visit Campbelltown. Could you let us into what it's like visiting Campbelltown during the festival?
Yes, oh, it's just magical. As I said before, it's one of the highlights of our calendar. We open up our distillery courtyard. We've got live music. We do special tastings as well. So this year I'll be hosting private tastings in our Dunnage warehouse, as well as doing a port to port session, which really is showcasing the importance of maritime trade to Campbelltown, and why we still use those traditional maritime trading casks that we talked about previously, whether that's PX or Oloroso, rum, and port, which Ruby Port features in our festival release this year. So it's a 7-year-old, it's medium peated, which is very rare for Glen Scotia because we only run peated malt for up to 4 weeks of the year. So we like to kind of earmark those special parcels of stock for events like the festival, because it's such a special celebration for us. So yeah, as I say, live music, whiskey, friends, what's not to love? I would encourage anyone, if they can get tickets, or whether they visit Campbelltown during the festival or not, it's always such a friendly, warm, inviting place to be. So if you enjoyed our 12-year-old and you want to taste more whiskies like that, then please come to Campbelltown.
Yeah, well, I've lucky enough, I've tried that festival bottling, and I think it's delicious as well. But I really do love this 12-year-old. Like I said, I think it's fantastic. What what can we look forward to from Glen Scotia moving forward? I mean, this came out last year, and kind of, I think, maybe took the whiskey nerd world by storm. So what's happening this year?
Yeah, it's more just about taking Glen Scotia spirit to the world. And with this 12-year-old, it was about making sure that the whisky was accessible. You know, it's a 12-year-old age statement. It's non-chill filtered, natural presentation, 46% ABV at a really approachable price point as well. We want people to buy Glen Scotia. We want them to try it and love it. It's really, for me, Campbelltown is a special place. It's got rich heritage. The people are fantastic. The whiskey is equally so. And with something like Glen Scotia 12, it really was about trying to make sure that Campbelltown was on people's radar. So we continue to fly the flag for Campbelltown.
And it's in a fantastic bottle as well. Lovely, lovely
Oh
drink.
yes, our marketing team did a fantastic job. So it's if obviously people have the pouches, but if they've seen the full bottle in its regalia, it's this lovely royal blue, which is the same colour as our dunnage doors. It's the same colour as our mash tun, all our kind of spirit receivers. So it really is about bringing people home to Glen Scotia. The chalk white is the white of the gable end of our distillery, and as I say, the blue is representative of our dunnage, our warehouse, our brand home.
Oh, Ashley, thank you so much for sharing this whiskey with us.
You're very
And
welcome.
telling
It's
us a little
been
bit
really
more about.
enjoyable.
Oh, good, good. And I highly recommend everyone attempts to visit Campbelltown, because you'll be richly rewarded when you get there.
You
Um,
absolutely will.
and you'll hopefully join us again in a minute as well. Is that all right?
Yes, I will. I'll stick around.
Thank you very much. Wow, what a fantastic evening. I always love when we do these tastings. You always think, oh, what's going to happen? And always a theme comes out. And this time it's the contrasts. We've got Glen Scotia, rich distilling tradition, old school ways of making whiskey, and then Black Fox really pushing the boundaries in every direction that they can, whether it's the hybrid wheat, to even storing their casks outside. What an absolute treat it's been this evening. Please do remember that you'll be getting an email tomorrow where you can get both of these bottles at a really great price. But let's bring back both our guests now.
Hello again.
Thank you so much for both, all three of you. Sorry, it's caught me off guard. I don't normally have so many people.
Thank you for having us. I'm just sipping on the Black Fox just now, and I think you mentioned there was like a childhood dessert at the very start. For me, there's like a sort of warm kind of gingerbread note coming off of it. It's absolutely beautiful.
Ashley, I wonder if you could just give us your thoughts on being exposed to the idea of having casks outside. What a wonderful thing.
Oh, it's fantastic. Really interested to do some more research on it, and yes, I will definitely be picking John and Barb's brains over our chat to see just the impact of it on across their whole range. It's I don't know if the warehouse men would be too happy at Glen Scotia if we asked them to work outside all the time. I think, to be fair, the warehouses are not the warmest places anyway, but at least it's some shelter from the rain.
Yeah,
And the wind, yes.
the wind for
That's
us.
true.
Yeah, that is. And unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to get the Glen Scotia samples shipped to us, but we are sure looking forward to it. As I said, we're coming to the UK later this summer, and we've asked that our sample be kept for us. So we're excited to try it then. And I would love to make it to the Campbelltown Festival. That sounds fabulous.
Oh, it's so much fun. You would always be welcome.
Thank you.
So we always have a bit of a tradition on this show. I always ask this final question. I'm going to start with you, John and Barb. What do you see happening in the whiskey world, and what do you think is going to be happening this year and the next? Where would you like things to go? What are you excited for, and maybe what are you fearful for? Big question.
Yeah, big. It is a big question.
I think it's quite interesting. We're quite new to the business, so it's like we're meeting people that are really, really enjoying whiskey, and they're not enjoying whiskey so much because they love the flavor, but they love the relationships that get developed around having a nice whiskey, and I think that's driving them to become more exploratory. So they want to try something different, which is good for us. But I think it's pushing those boundaries, like Ashley was saying, like here, how can we know we've got these beautiful whiskeys, how can we present them to the wider public? And I think the wider public is really having an appreciation for those exceptional whiskeys coming from every different corner of the world right now.
And I would like to build on that too. And Ashley also mentioned that it's the sharing with friends and how that changes the experience. And I think in the whiskey world, we need to lean on that more and really promote that it's not just a drink. It's not an alcoholic, it's not just the party drink. It's to develop really deep relationships and have that wonderful experience of being with someone and doing that. I think that's the most fun about whiskey.
Fantastic. What a lovely answer. So now, Ashley, over to you. Don't know what direction you're going to take it in.
Fully agree there with Barb's last point. It is about sharing whiskey. more Campbelltown specifically, probably for me, is the excitement of the investment in the Kintyre region and Campbelltown itself. We talked a bit about, you know, how Campbelltown was once the whisky capital of the world, and at one point there was up to, I think, 26 operational distilleries at any one time in the little town of Campbelltown. And more recently, we've seen a lot more investment in the region, and there's potentially scope for another 3 distilleries to join us in Campbelltown, which I think can only be a good thing. Bringing more people into Campbelltown and exposing them to this beautiful spirit, this lovely regional, coastal, maritime, delicious whiskey. That for me is a joy.
Oh, great. Oh, I'm so pleased you're back, John.
Sorry, someone came to the door.
I appreciate it's a slightly different time where you guys are. We're well and truly into the evening now, so that's quite nice. Well, hopefully, John and Barb, I might meet you when you come to the UK. That would be lovely. But thank you so much for sharing your whiskey. I thought it was fabulous. And Ashley, as you know, I'm a big fan of the Glen Scotia 12, so it was a real joy.
Thank you.
I'm going to say good evening to both of you, and I'm going to close the show out. But what a pleasure it was. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure was ours.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
God, that really was fantastic, and I hope you agree with me that was 2 wonderful whiskies, and so entertaining to hear 2 sort of contrasting styles of making whiskey, and they're both fantastic. I've told you multiple times, but look out for that email tomorrow, and you can nab both of these for a fantastic price. Please do follow us on social media and spread the word. But I love doing these tastings. I love having you here. So thank you so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.